Hello friends, how are you doing? This is MUCIAN's lifestyle, and today we are going to be looking at something new, something different, and something worthy. So if at all you have been watching our first tutorials, today we are going to be looking at different paper sizes, because you can't be someone good at graphics when you don't know which paper sizes you have to use. If someone talks of an A4, if someone talks of an A3, when you can't tell, because someone will come and tell you, design me a poster that is basically to be put on an A4, or design it on an A5, but you won't understand what is it. You will, like, what will come into your mind is, what is this person trying to mean? So it is worthy for you to understand the different paper sizes as a graphics designer, as someone who is involved into designing. So the importance of paper, understanding paper sizes, because is, if someone comes to you and says, maybe design me a business card, design me a poster, design me a brochure, design me that and this. So each of those designs has a standard paper size where it should be designed. So if you happen to put a business card on an A4 that is incredibly long, it will turn wrong. May turn into being a poster. So that is why we have to understand different paper sizes and paper orientations before we go into what? Before we go into designing inside the softwares. Because when we get to designing inside the softwares, we are going to be basically looking at just saying that we want to design an A4 poster, we want to design an A4 brochure, or an A1 brochure, or something, or a poster. Are you getting it? So if you didn't understand paper sizes, then it will end up confusing you. It is the same thing that applies to Photoshop. If we happen to be using Photoshop, let me say you design an image and you take it for printing, and someone asks you, which frame do you want for your image to be put in? Then it talks of an A4, A3, A1, or A0, then you won't understand anything. So to remove that chaos, we have to try to understand paper sizes. So basically, this is the height and length of a paper, or height and width, as you see it here. This is the height, this is the width, or you may call it the length of that paper. So remember that this is a continuation of our tutorials that are basically tour guide and from a professional graphics designer on how to design and understand graphics 1, and tour guide and from a professional graphics designer on how to understand and on how to design and understanding graphics 2. So this one I'm recording right now is going to be part 3. So in part 3, that is how, that is in this part where we are basically looking at different paper sizes, and if you understand them, it is going to be a better advantage to you, of a good advantage to you. So remember, all these tutorials are basically free, but if you are more than interested, please leave a thumbs up here, like that. And if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing and clicking the bell button, so that for every tutorial that we happen to release, you get a notification and watch it. Then another thing I would say is, they are basically free, but if you consider and see the worth of these tutorials worthy, you may donate to us through our PayPal account, that is nyenjeisaac95@gmail.com, because everything is free, but with your appreciation, we shall appreciate too. So then back to our topic. If we go back to the different paper sizes, now let us try to understand them. The paper size that is most familiar, that you may be familiar with, or you may not, but it is the standard paper size that you usually find it common, like in printing, in the printing industry, is an A4. So with an A4, we can use an A4 to like come up with all the different paper sizes. So what should you have in mind? What you should grasp is the size of an A4 paper. So as a graphics designer, as someone who is getting introduced to graphics, consider at least grasping an A4 paper size into your head. Okay, so an A4 paper. So the size of an A4 paper is basically a 21, that is width, then a 21 centimeters, that is width or length, then the height should be a 29.7. Okay, so remember in our guide too, this guide too, we looked at different what? We looked at different page orientations where we talked of landscape and portrait. Okay, where we talked of landscape. Okay, this is landscape, and then portrait, where we said that if at all our design is put in portrait, that is when its height is longer than the width. And when our design is basically put in landscape, it means that the width is longer than the height. So if we happen to go back to our design, let us open one of the softwares. Then let me first delete this. Then I remove that, so I come to the rectangle. So we shall be looking at the softwares from start, but I'm showing you something and I'm using these softwares, but we shall get to understand them better. So if I happen to come, and because I'm trying to visualize it, then I form that is my rectangle. So let's say that this is my rectangle or paper size that is in portrait. Remember, we said that for a design to be in portrait, the height is longer than the width. So let's say our height is, so we go for the text tool. So our height is 29.7 centimeters. Okay, so this is our height. That is 29.7 centimeters. Then if we happen to duplicate this, so when I was duplicating, I'm using a Windows computer or laptop, where like I've just selected this. Then when I click and hold, I click and hold, then hold Alt, so it brings this. When you look at my cursor, it has a black and a cursor that is having a stroke, and in the middle it is white, so it means duplicating. Then I dragged, then released. But when you are releasing, you first release the mouse before you release the Alt button, so then it duplicates. I've deleted that. So now when we happen to go back here, click our text, and this is a 21. Okay, 21 centimeters. So this is a portrait. So if our design appears like that, it means that is basically a portrait. When you happen to look at this canvas of mine, it is also in a portrait what? In a portrait format. Okay, so I want us to first understand this. So then if we happen to get this, okay, just this, remember I've told you that when we are duplicating something, what we do, are you seeing that? I click Ctrl Z, or when you come here and click redo movement or undo move. So if I happen to get this, I click and drag into the rectangle, then I hold the Alt button, Then on releasing it, then I drag it to where I want it. On releasing it, I first release the mouse button, okay, then I release the alt button, okay. So I want now to rotate it. So if I to rotate it like this, I hold shift, so it moves in what? In angles, okay. But remember, as I was coming near it with my cursor, which tool have I selected? The selection tool. After selecting the selection tool, when I try to move it near this rectangle, look at how my cursor changes. So it gives me that rotation. Then I hold shift, because if I don't hold shift and I try to rotate it, it will move, but it won't move in angles. So if I hold shift, are you seeing? So it has moved 45 degrees, 90 degrees, so it is straight. Then I release the mouse button. But what mouse button am I talking of? I'm using the left mouse button. So after getting this, so this is the landscape format. So with the landscape format, the width has to be longer than the what? The height. So our height is a little bit what? Small. So at least now I hope we can differentiate between the different page orientations. So what you have to grasp is with an F4, okay, with an F4. So if we start with understanding and making sure that the size of an A4 sticks into our heads, it means that we can understand all the other paper sizes. As you see it here, let me delete this. So now we are going to start to try to understand the different paper sizes. So I'm going to reduce this. So this is our A4. So if I happen to drag this A4, then I drag it in the middle. What should you understand? There are basically different paper sizes that are used in the printing what? In the printing world. Okay, let me duplicate this. Ctrl Z. Okay, then hold Alt. So it has been duplicated. Then Ctrl plus to see that at least it scales and comes closer to our screen. So basically there are different paper sizes. So there are different paper sizes that you need to know. Most of you may know of an A4. So if at all you know photocopying papers, most of the papers that are basically common are A4 papers. Let me show you something. A4 papers, because A4 papers are commonly used on printing exams. I think all of you have had some exams that you have been sitting for. So it is basically most of the times used to print on exams, to print on these basic posters, menu cards, so brochures. But it basically depends on someone designing, because if at all you are the designer and the costs of the costs of designing. So if at all I'm to design something, I also consider which costs have I been given. So if a client gives you something that is a little bit low, it means you have to design something that may not cause you to incur some other costs. So we go back here. So this is, we are trying to look at the different paper sizes that we should expect. In the printing world, expect these different paper sizes. An A0, that is what we would start with. Okay. We have an A0. We have an A1. We have A2. A3. We have F4, and basically this one, most of you know it, but you don't know how it is called. As I've told you, for all of you who have been sitting for exams somewhere, maybe in your institutes, universities, or somewhere, at least you know an F4, but you have not been knowing it. Then F5, S6, S7, then A8. So we are basically going to be stopping there. Okay, we have an A0, A1, A2, A3, F4, F5, A6, A7, and A8. So these are like most times used in the printing world. So if at all we are designers, at least we would try to understand these different paper sizes. And what you shouldn't forget is, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and try to share it with people or other people in this field, or other people who would want to understand graphics and become better at designing. Okay, so what else should you understand about the paper sizes? Okay, so if we go back to our F4, so when we are okay, when we are designing something, let me say an A, let me get this. So remember, when you look at where we have written this, we started with an A0, A1, A2, A3, A4. So this is an A4 here. Okay. Then we continued to A5, A6, A7, and A8. So if we go back here, we make this an A what? An A0, an A0. So A0, then we make this one an that is an A8. Then let us, when this one is selected, I hold shift and I also click on this one. So these two are selected, then drag in the corner or like that. Or let us just increase one by one. So an A0 and an A8. Okay. So what do I want you to understand from here? Remember, this is our biggest paper size and this is our smallest paper size. So as you come from an A4, okay, as you come away from an A4 towards your side of A0, so it means that from A5, okay, I mean from A4 to A0, the size increases. Okay, so increase, just put increase. So when you're coming from an A4 to A0, the size increases. It means that this basically means that an A0 is bigger than an A1 and an A1 is bigger than an A2. So an A2 is bigger than an A3 and an A3 is bigger than an A4. So meaning that from A4 to A0, as you go towards A0, the size of the page does what? Increases. And when you are basically moving from an A4 to an A8, it means that the size of the page or the paper size, that's what it does, what it decreases. So sorry for this spelling error. Increase. Then if we duplicate this, remember we said when duplicating you select that, then hold shift. Okay, select it, move it and drag it where you want it, then release the mouse before you release the alt button, because the alt button is the duplicating button and the software we are using is Illustrator. So if I happen to click into the word and I click Ctrl A, so I will have selected everything in that text tool, text that has been done. Then I change this to decrease. So this means that if at all you are basically coming towards A8 from F4, the sizes go on doing what? Decreasing. Okay. So meaning that an A0 is bigger than everything towards the right side. So if at all, this same thing will apply here. Okay. So then let us try to just put this from here to that side, then from here to that what? Ctrl Z to undo. So are you seeing that from F4, okay, this is our F4. So from F4 towards A0, it increases, the paper sizes increase, and from F4 towards A8, the paper sizes do what? Decrease. Then if at all we are looking at this, so this tries to explain it. But what should you understand, that we've explained that, but if at all you are coming up with a design, you should avoid this, because whatever appears outside the canvas, this white layer, whatever appears outside the canvas means that it won't be done what? It won't show up. Okay, it won't happen to show up on a final design. So if at all we try to visualize what we are basically trying to mean, so we are going to say that when you are coming up with an A3, an A3 is a double of an A4. Then an A2 is a double of an A3. Are you getting it? So after understanding that, we are going to be trying to visualize that and try to see that we try to understand it. So let us try to form a new page. So I don't want us to delete this. Let us just come here, then say new. So we already, let us remove that. We already have to like, okay. So let me hope at least we've understood this first one of the paper sizes. Okay. So if we go to the second part, let me just get this, select this. Okay. Select this, then place it here. Okay, so at least let me hope you are understanding it. You are understanding that that is where we had stopped. Okay, so if we happen to like have this, now we are going to try to understand it better. So if this is our A, let us start with decreasing it. So if this is our F4, if this is our F4, remember we said an F4 is a 29. Let us try to select it and Ctrl plus to increase it. Remember we said an F4 is our standard print, the standard printing paper size. Okay, so most of the people printing usually use an A4, but if at all you happen to go to a serious place having a lot of customers, they happen to be using quite a different number of paper sizes. So an A4 is a 29.7 centimeters by 21 centimeters, 29.7 centimeters by 21 centimeters. So if at all we happen to decrease it now, then we select it and duplicate it. Click, drag, hold Alt, so we duplicate it. So now, which paper size are we going to create? Let me go back here, drag this, just click this and just get this, and I want us to bring it here. Okay, so that we can understand it. So if we bring that the other side, so remember we are, as we move from an A4 to an A5 to an A6, an A7 and A8, it means that as we go downwards, the paper sizes do what? Decrease. So meaning that A8 is smaller than everything from A7 to A4. So A8 is the smallest, meaning that A5 is bigger than A6 and A6 is bigger than A7. A7 is bigger than A8. So now what we are going to do, we are going to be dividing this. Okay. So if we happen to divide a what? A4 in the middle. So we click Ctrl Z to undo, Ctrl Z again. So if this is our line and we place it there in the middle. So this was an A4. Okay, this was an A4. So if we happen to divide it in the middle, we are creating an A what? An A5. Okay, so if we divide an A4 in the middle, it means we are basically creating an A5. So what makes the what makes an A5? So it means if at all we divide an A4 in the middle but in the portrait way, it means that the height of an A4 is going to be divided. But so this is the height. Okay, the height. Let me get here. So this is the height. No, let me use this line point. So then if I increase it here, so this is the height from here to here. Are you seeing that? So that is the height of an A4. So if at all we divide it in the middle, it means that at 29, at 20, we get our calculator here. So at 29.7 centimeters, okay? At 29.7 centimeters divided by 2, making it a 14.85. So it means that our A5, let us duplicate this. So it means that our A5, so this is we'll duplicate this. This is A4. So this means that with an A4, so if at all we divide it, this is an A4 also, this is an A4, to avoid confusion. So here I was showing you that A4 being the standard paper size, as you leave an A4 to an A8, an 8A8, the size goes on decreasing. So if at all we are moving from an A4 to A0, the size goes on increasing. So this is our A4. So if we divide an A4 into 2, okay, meaning that we are going to be creating an A5, okay, F5, A5. So with an A5, now quote this right. So are you saying this? This was the biggest what? This was the longest size. Okay. Now, if we happen to divide it, what was the longest size is going to become the shortest what? Side. So, forming a what? A landscape. Whereby this 21 remains constant. Okay. This 21 remains constant because it is not tampered with, but this 29.7, it is the one that was divided, forming when we used our calculator and divided a 29.7 centimeters divided by 2, where we created a 14.85. So 14.85. So this is the size of an A what? The size of an A5. So if we drag this, are you seeing that? So this is the size of an A5. Half of an A4 creates an A5, but yes, we are talking of an half. Let me show you something. You'll happen to see it here. So our A4 was 29.7. Okay, by, let me put X by a 21 centimeter. Okay, these are all what? Centimeters. Then an F5 was it, we have formed a 14 point 8 5 times 21. So remember, all these are what? Centimeters. So are you seeing that? So I want you to understand this thing, how these different paper sizes are got. So we have an A4, then an A5. Now we are going to be creating an A6. So if we happen to get this, so this is our A5. So if we get this A5 and we divide it, get this, got it. So basically this is our F5. So now we are going to be dividing it, meaning that if we are to divide an F5, it is going to be creating an A6, as you see it here. That from an F4 we go to F5, from F5 we go to A6. So this is our A6, but this isn't the size. So it means that we are now going to be basically dividing, because this becomes our what? Our height. Okay, being, as you see it here, sorry, so this is our 21 centimeters, and this is a 14.85. so we are to divide it in the middle, but now we don't divide it as we divided here, because we always, when we are dividing a paper size, we divide alongside the height, so the longest side. So if we are to divide it now, we are going to be dividing it also vertically. Okay, so we have to rotate our division line. So as we move our cursor closer to the line, it changes the appearance to that of rotation. Then we drag. Remember, I told you that when you are dragging, you hold a shift. When you are rotating, you hold a shift. Are you seeing? So it moves, it rotates in a angle format. So that is our middle. So if we divide an A6 in the middle, it means that we are now dividing a what? A 21 in the middle. So it means that when we are dividing, we leave the height untouched now. So we are dividing the what? The width. So if we are to create something, it will appear like this. Not so, as you see it here. So it is going to be in a portrait form, not now in a landscape form, meaning that we are going to retain our 14.85. Then this below one, we are now going to divide a 21 divide by 2, meaning we shall have we shall be having 10.5. So that is what we shall be having, a 10.5, then a 14. Are you seeing that? So it is basically a half of a 21. That is our width. So we remove this. Is this? No. That is it. So it will be a 10.5, then a 14.85. So we subtract it, meaning that we come back here, and S6 will be a 10.5 times times 14 point 8 what? 85. So the first one was a 20 what? A 29.7 times 21. Okay. Okay. Like that. Then the second one was a 14.85 times 21. Then the second one was The second one was, the third one was a 10.85 times 14.85. Then we are now going to earn a7. Remember, as you see it, where here, where we created this. From F4, from A0, as you come to an F4, when you're like coming from an F4 to A0, the sizes increase. When you're coming away from A4 to A8, the sizes go on what? Decreasing. So it is the same thing I'm trying to explain to you here. So now we'll remove this. If we get this, this is an A what? A6. So with this A6, if we bring it down, so with an A6 we want to create an A what? We want to create an A7. So this is it. So we remember we said we divide along the highest what? Highest size. So today now we are going to be dividing it horizontally. So if at all we happen to come here and now divide, we have to make sure that this is in the center. So now we are dividing an A6. So we divide an A6 to see that we create an A what? An A7. So like that. So it means that this, the downer one, is going to remain constant. Okay. And this will make it landscape format. So this is an A7. Being an A7, it means that we are dividing this height. So if we happen to divide 14.85 divide by 2, forming a 7.425, forming a 7 point. Hold Alt. So forming, let me see what it forms, 7.425. So a 7.425. So forming a 7.25 but 425. But remember, this 10 is retained. Okay, and these are basically centimeters. Don't forget that. So if we happen to go back here, then note that. So it is a 7.425 by a what? By a 10 point, that is a 10.5. Are you seeing that? Then our last paper size is an A8. So this one towards the decreasing format. So if we duplicate it and place it there, that is A7. Okay, so with this A7, we drag it here to our division area, then we divide it. We are going to use this format of dividing in the middle, like there. So if we are to divide this in the middle, it means that we are creating something that is in the portrait format, like that, because we are going to be dividing the 10.5. okay, if we are to divide a 10.5 divide by 2, giving us 5.25. we come back here, meaning that this is so we are going to be retaining this. Okay, then we divide this. Okay. Sorry. So this has been divided, and when we divided the 10.5, we got 5.25. 5.25. We remove this arrow, was out of a mistake. So that is it, meaning that our A8, we drag this, forming an A8. Meaning that our A8 has a height that is 7.425. Okay. A8 has no, we made a mistake here. This has to be in this format, like that, because this is longer, a 7.425. Then if we happen to divide this, so we divided here, then got a 10, a 14 by 10.5. okay, then we brought it here, then divided it, forming a 7. No, this is right. No, it wasn't a mistake. So then we got this with the width being longer. Then we divided this to form this and this. So meaning that with this 8, I was right. With this 8, A8, so with this A8, our height is 7.425 times 5.25. So basically that is our what? Our our A8 because it is having a 2.25 and a 7.425. So that is our A8. So as you see it here, at least let me hope that you have understood this section, this one here, because that is what we were dealing with. From an A4 to an A8, it means that the sizes go on decreasing. As you see them here, the sizes go on decreasing. As they go down, they go on decreasing. So thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe. So within our coming tutorial, we are going to be looking at the other side. That is we come back here, that is looking at this side. Okay, the increasing part. We have been looking at the decreasing part, and this is our part 3. So expect the increasing part in our part 4. Thanks for watching, and thanks for subscribing. Remember, these tutorials are basically free, but make sure at least you leave a thumbs up or a comment where you have not understood, where you have understood, where it has confused you, and we make them better. And if at all you are free to donate to us and keep up this great work, you can pass through our PayPal account at nyenjeisaac95 @gmail.com. And those of you who would want to join Distrokid as a music distributor, so you consider coming to my description section of this video, and you'll happen to get that chance to have the prices decreased. The prices will be decreased by 7%. That is it. Thanks for watching. Love you so much.